I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5:30. I'm going to ask everybody to please stand, and we're going to have a moment of silence for Ethan Crawford that passed away, a Northside student. Amen. I encourage everybody to be in thoughts and prayers for that family and the staff of Northside as we go in the coming days. And the funeral arrangements are on Joseph Paul Jr. Funeral Home, if anybody wants to see it. So, 2.1, approval agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. 3.1, we have a correction on line 5 brought to me by Mr. Shreve. Hang on, that's closed session. It should say, and replace Gary Carlton with T.W. Allen. Terry Williams with T.W. Allen on that line. Everybody good with that correction? All right.
If that's the only correction, I move we accept that correction, accept the minutes.
Thank you, Donald. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, 4.1, board recognition, Dr. Cheeseman.
January is National School Board Recognition, and on behalf of the community of Beaufort County, I'd like to thank you all for being school board members to serve our students here in the public education that we provide. And through that appreciation, there's a token on each one of your desks that we hope that you can enjoy. So thank you very much for your service to Beaufort County.
4.2, 25-26 calendars, you have an attachment. Mr. Doon.
Yes, sir. Thanks to the hard work of Beaufort County Schools Calendar Committee. You have both the early college, high school calendar, and you also have the proposed traditional calendar for 25-26. As you know, the state requires us that we are not allowed to start school before the 26th of the first Monday before the 26th, so we are starting on the 25th. But unfortunately, we can't start any earlier. We've also honored all the state holidays. So you see Labor Day, you see Thanksgiving holiday, Veterans Day, et cetera. In the time-honored tradition of Beaufort County Schools, you see the 3 days at Thanksgiving, which our calendar committee and families support. You'll also notice 2 full weeks over Christmas break. You'll also note that February 9th, the day after the Super Bowl, is a work day. Another hard-fought battle by the calendar committee. April 3rd is Good Friday holiday, and then following the spring, you have the last day for students will be June 5th, and then last day for teachers would be the 12th.
This is a non-action item. Just kind of keep it looked over. Ask people if they got any questions or concerns over the next month, and go from there.
Yes, sir.
Any board? Go ahead. Oh, I did have 2.
Has the calendar been submitted to all the schools to review?
Yes, members of the calendar committee have met with their constituents. A number of work days at the beginning and end of the year, which is the feud between elementary and high school folks.
Right.
Middle school are just caught in the middle.
Right, as
So-
they always are.
I got one more question. Does this calendar get our semester ended in the first?
According to the feedback from our high school principals and most of our high school teachers, I think universally, with a little bit of planning, they were all excited about finishing exams before Christmas break.
How did the days balance?
11 to 15 days on the other side of second semester,
Over
more
that
than
many?
yeah. Well,
So-
also depends on how the holidays fall, because
Right.
some years we're able to get back in January a little earlier. So it can be as, this year I believe it was 11 days.
11 more days in the second semester.
Yes, ma'am. Which is usually about how it falls.
Okay.
Not a negative thing, but just a comment. Because of the way it was this year and exemptions from exams, those kids that were exempt from exams were all like summer break.
Yes, sir.
But I
could be
guess
3
if you were
weeks.
smart enough to be exempt from all your exams, it didn't matter that you were out a few extra days. But you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes, sir.
before with it after, and I don't want it after, I want it this way.
Yep.
But it broke it between the two.
Yes,
This time they were out a solid 3 weeks.
Yes, sir.
I didn't think some kids were ever gonna go back to school and leave my
And
house.
an incentive for good grades too.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's a negative thing, but it just, Donald, it's like they never went
Yeah.
to school. I mean, it was, yeah, I was
Mark,
thinking,
is
are
this
y'all
a-
ever gonna leave my house? But whatever.
Oh,
Is
I
this
hear-
the
I hear
earliest
that.
time, possible time according to state?
Yes, sir.
Start?
Yes, sir. Fortunately, we cannot control start date.
I know.
We'll still keep moving.
Good thing.
4.3, capital outlay projects. Mr. Stokes is on the way up. Board, you got an attachment. Go ahead, sir.
My school always started July 20th,
Afternoon.
because we got out 6 weeks for cotton picking.
We're working now. In front of you, you should have an attachment of the current 24-25 capital outlay request. Just real easy, we have 32 projects that are currently completed. We have 25 of the projects that are currently in progress, either scheduled or are currently being worked on. Projects currently assigned, approved, we only have 4 to do at this time. And we will be working on those 4 in the next month or 2 to try to get them working. Extra jobs that we've had paving at Northside High School that completed. The bath gym is being painted. And the science lab at Washington High School got completed with very happy teachers.
I know that people at Northside appreciate the non-profit.
Been a long time waiting on that.
It's 19, whenever it was, when it was built. So, anybody got any questions right quick?
I have a question. So many of these projects involved a sound system, either in a gym or an auditorium or somewhere. Did we bid those, did you bid those out individually? Because I guess they had different needs, but,
Heard you at Amber on that sheet, several of the projects.
because there's just so many, and I guess maybe a lot of them were about the same age, so they all went bad at the same time. You're on now.
I'm not exactly sure when we started having some equipment failures, however. The projects, depending on what school it was, some of those have already been started, some of those are we're working with quotes now. Also, depending on what fund it's being paid from, depends on how, if it can be funded locally or if it's coming through a capital grant as well.
I have a friend who is in Pitt County, and they've really struggled getting people to bid on sound systems, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and we've got so many that we need. Are you having trouble getting people to bid? Are the bids coming in fair, or?
Well, we haven't had to do an RFP process to actually get bids yet. We're just doing quotes based on the amount of money that they're funded for. But we try to get at least 3. I know we have 2 that are consistent, and Ben could probably speak better. We typically don't have more than 3.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
don't
I'm
have an
not
issue with
questioning your
those.
process or anything. I was just curious, because we need so many. If you were having difficulty getting people to bid and come in at a reasonable, price, but so far, we're okay on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I noticed a lot of them haven't been done yet, so I didn't know if it was a problem, but,
Yeah,
okay.
part of why they're not being done yet is we're trying to use NC lottery money
Uh-huh,
in that special fund that's awarded to
Okay.
public schools.
well, that makes sense.
And they have to be clustered, and the board has to approve it, and then your county commissioners have to approve it. So it's a longer process.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Hey, whatever help we can get, right?
Don?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, and one is what Mr. Cheeseman had just brought up, the North Carolina lottery. So we're using those funds for,
We anticipate to
Capital.
use those funds, so as we essentially get all of our ducks in a row with price quotes and forms filled out, then we would bring it to the board for approval, meaning that you have intent to use lottery funds. And then we would need to take it to the county commissioners, because lottery funds flow through the county commission. And so once they approve it, then the money is released back down to the county and then dispersed to us so we can go ahead and complete the test.
and use those funds.
Well, we're
for
trying to
that.
cluster them, so we're not
Yes.
doing individual requests, that we're doing one request for many things.
Yeah, and then the other meetings ago, I'd asked you about the sound system at Bath Elementary, and I think you said that you had started. Has that been finished? Because
Be Andrea's question. You
Yeah.
go.
Next to the last board meeting, when we were approved to move forward with it, it was right before Christmas, so
Yeah.
we've got everything ready. We've notified them that they were the vendor of choice, but they haven't actually started yet since this week was our
okay.
first week back in the buildings.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions? Go ahead, Gary.
Jamie, I always ask about this. Under safety and security, I know that it's not really shown how it's updated there, but door locks, key systems,
There's a few, one was a carrier from last year, and one's John Small. We've got the door locks, and we're currently, our key locksmith is installing them. We've installed them at JCT, we started a few at Northeast. There wasn't a lot of them that were requested, but the ones that were requested, we're currently installing them. We're about complete with that.
what about Washington High School?
There was none requested on capital for that school.
Jamie, can you update him on the rekeying of the outside doors based on the senior prank? That's what he's
Yes, what we-
referencing.
What we did do there is, you have a master key for each school, and then certain ones of us have a great grandmaster that unlocks everything. We rekeyed every exterior door at Washington High School with a new master. And then me and Mr. Swenson, Principal Swenson, got together. He told me how many keys that he needed. We provided them to him. Our current and great grand masters still unlock the doors, but only a few people have those. So, any keys that we may have had that were outstanding, that were unaccounted for exterior door locks, they're no good no more. They don't
Okay.
work. And Dr. Swenson has assigned those, and he's got a few extras. So we now know who currently has those keys.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Dr. Chief.
SY 26, capital outlay tours.
I mean, this is if you can make it as a group, and if you cannot, you're always welcome to go to the school, walk through the school with the principal, but this is just a designated time that the principal and his or her staff know to be available to walk you through the school, to show you items of interest that they feel as though may be in disrepair and need your attention to it. So again, if you can make those times, fantastic. If you cannot make those times, then we can set up additional times for you.
All right. 4.5, budget preparation. You also have an attachment to that. A lot of dates and a lot of work.
All right, so previously passed this out, but just to remind you, here's the timeline. February 5th, we're going to start working with our principals and directors in terms of what their needs are, and that will happen at a principal meeting. But also to point to your attention, February 11th, during that week, your county commissioners will have a budget retreat meeting. So this also covers 4.6, by the way. So in that meeting, there's a presentation, essentially a mid-year review of where we are, where we were, where we are now, and what's it looking like moving forward. So at the next board meeting in January, I'll present to you a PowerPoint presentation in a draft form for your consideration of what you'd like added to it or subtracted from it. But part of also what I've included is not just the timeline, but the policy code, just for some of you to be updated why we're doing these things. So if you notice on the policy code, letter B, by January 31st, is the board a calendar outlining the steps which you have in your possession based on policy. But what I really wanted to talk about is where we were and where we're headed to, and so you should have a few other documents there. One is your student enrollment since 1999, and there's often just commentary in terms of how many students are in Beaufort County schools and how many students are in the county and where are the children and where are they going. So what this document shows you is your loss of enrollment is not recent. Your loss of enrollment is consistent. So in 1999, Beaufort County Schools, and this is typically taken from the 20th day of instruction, 10th day of instruction. But your 1999 number was 7,438 children in the district. And again, that's district-wide, not a particular school. But if you've noticed in the right-hand column moving down, you start to see change of numbers. So in essentially 2011, you're at 7,024 students. In 2020, you're at 6,300 students. In 2025, which is where you are now, you're at 5,484 students. And so I'm projecting to you, just based on averages over the last 5 years of essentially more graduates, less birth rate, and people moving in different directions, that in school year 2028, which is July of 2027, that you would slip under 5,000 students in Beaufort County schools. That's a projection. So in short, what I'm showing you is that over the last 20 plus years, you've changed by nearly 2,000 students. So what does that mean? If you open up to your PRC 001 trends, for those who don't understand program report codes, this 001 is your state-funded teacher allotment position. And so if you notice, just in school year 20, which would be the fall of 2019, the state allotted you 298.29, which, yes, you do actually get a decimal. I know that sounds strange. But to that, if you notice, the following year, you lost 8 teacher positions. The following year, you lost 14.57. The year after that, you lost 14.09. After that, you've lost 3.63. And in your current year, you've lost 5.63. So what does this mean? So over the last 6 years, including where you are now, you've lost approximately 47 state-funded teacher positions. And so if you see the outline below, you're trending down. Well, why do you lose those? Well, the state of North Carolina provides teacher allotments based on total number of students in the district, not total number of students in a school. And then it's our job to allocate those positions to your schools. So in short, the state doesn't look at, Northside High School individually. They don't look at Washington High School individually. They just look at total number of kids. In a bad analogy, total number of jelly beans in the jar. It's just what it is at the 10th day. So part of that is throughout the year, the state then balances their own accounting. So there's times where Ms. Potts, our Chief Finance Officer, will open an email and we've gained 0.5 position, or she'll open an email and we've lost 1.15 position, right? We don't really understand why, but it happens across the state. So what I'm showing you is the dynamic that you're reducing in total number of students, which then causes an impact of reducing total number of teacher positions. Well, 47 teacher positions over 6 years is an entire school of teachers. All right, so if you open up the next comparison, which is your 5-year funding comparison, if the state of North Carolina does not provide you, the board, enough teacher positions, then you have to look at federal funding and state funding. Federal funding and local funding. And to that matter, here's a comparison of your local funding. So in school year 21, which is July of 20 into the spring of 21, we requested from our county commissioners $15.1 million, and we were provided $14.587 million. This is not capital, this is local expense. So in 2022, and recognizing you're coming out of COVID, so there's reasons behind this, in 2022, knowing that we had a fair amount of ESSER funds to really work through some of the academic issues and student issues and just our basic needs, your request was not as grand as the previous year, but if you notice, you were flat funded, meaning you got the exact same amount previous year. In school year 22-23, Your request then went up to 16.6 based off of our needs because of the lack of what you had the previous years. Again, flat funded. In 2024, your request went up to 17.1. What you received did increase, but not at the level that you needed. And then this year, your request went up, not at the level of what you needed, although it did increase locally to 16.1. But in short, what am I showing you? The graph at the bottom shows you that over 6 years, or excuse me, over 5 years, you are missing or lacking $6.525 million based off of need request versus actual. All right, so what does that mean? So what that means is your ADM has declined, even though the percentage of students taught, or excuse me, the percentage of children in the county that have been available to even teach, although that has not changed very much in Beaufort County, your ADM has gone down, meaning your average daily membership, total number of children, pushing your state allotments down, causing greater needs at the school, meaning your class sizes are rising because of this, with less funding than what you've asked for, resulting in you having to use your fund balances, meaning your Fund 2 balance, which was about 1.1 6 years ago, but also a little bit of Fund 8 money as we can move things around legally and follow all of our rules and regulations and be in good standing. So I'm sharing this with you now so you can start to have knowledge or continue to have knowledge about this budget season of what your needs may be moving forward. And if you do receive what you need, fantastic. If you don't receive, then you're going to need to have a critical plan to that. Now, this past year, meaning the current school year, but in last year's budget session, you were presented with potential 36 positions to reduce, and you reduced 26, and you used, essentially fund balance to save 11. All right, so those are the types of things that I'm asking you to talk with your principals, talk with your directors, I'm asking you to talk with your constituents, your county commissioners, to really help them understand that the critical decision of year to year is starting to expand the gap. And that's what you see in the documents I provided to you. And making that may not be pleasant in terms of having to move staff across collapse positions, having classrooms, increasing class sizes. So there's a lot of things that you as a board are going to need to look at that we're going to provide to you. But I wanted you to have this information in advance, so as you start into the budget, you have a stronger understanding of what their needs are, but also what that fiscal implication could be.
Anybody got it? Go ahead, Don.
And looking at enrollment decreasing, families and students are leaving our schools.
I think, one, they graduate, and the birth rate is not as high as the graduation rate at times. Two, they have other choices, and so they may go to homeschool, private school, and sometimes public schools is not the appropriate place to service some of the needs of children, and parents make decisions that way. So competition. The other part of that is employment. Families are moving out of this county and out of this region to more centralized North Carolina. You can see it from the east side moving central. So there's a various amount. And honestly, we ask, but
I think Terry Williams, he did the math. Of the available kids.
Until this past year, Dr. Cheeseman just hit on it.
Yeah.
In his speech, when he said, when he mentioned the number of kids available to us. So of the number of kids up through 19, is it? 19 years of age that are eligible to go to school. What percentage do public schools, our system, educate? Well, we right in the 89% range. Here, I believe it finally fell, am I correct, to 88, the low 88? But still less than 1%. So that's saying is, even though we've lost this, you say we've lost this many kids, of the kids available to be educated, if you go look into the numbers in our county, we're still getting our share of the pie. So if you think of it like that, then you have to ask yourself, so where are the kids? And I know I get a laugh every time I say this, but I'm going to say it one more time. People, nothing to do with the school system. People are leaving the county. Look at our census. It's gone, since I've been on the board, we've dropped thousands and thousands of people in the county. And the part that I always get a laugh of is when they leave, they take their children with them. And that sounds funny, but it's not funny.
That's true.
You have a family with 2 kids, they get a job off somewhere else, they move out of the county for a better opportunity, they take little Susie and Johnny with them. And so they're not here. Because you can't argue with, when you look into the facts, you can't argue with the fact that we're still educating 88 to 89% of the kids available. So when people say, it's not entirely true, there's some things that you have to look into and factor. But when people say, oh, they're leaving your school system and going to charters and leaving you and going to this, that's not entirely true. The kids that are here in the county, the 89% are still coming to us. We do lose kids every year that leave the school system and go to charters, but I can tell you because it just happened in real hard facts in a school over the holidays. We have kids that leave those schools and come back into the public
Right,
schools.
we do.
So they move both ways, do they not, Ms. Walker?
That's true. They do. They come
All you
back.
can look at is how many kids are here to educate. Are we getting our fair share? Now, I don't know, Donald, if 89's fair share or not, but that's where we've always been. We're still getting them. They're just not here to educate. As he said, you have more people graduating and leaving than people. They don't have big families anymore.
They
They're
don't
not.
have-
The birth rate is lower. So, hey, get busy, folks. We got to have some kids.
They don't have big families, and the job opportunities keep shrinking in Beaufort County. So until our job opportunities at
Right.
a more than just a minimum wage, but a living wage, and until we have job opportunities at a living wage where a family can be supported and pay either rent or mortgage and put gas in their car and food on their table, they're going to continue to leave Beaufort County because those opportunities, whether we like it or not, and we have literally no control over industry coming back. We lost so much industry in Beaufort County over, what would you say, a 20-year period?
Look
Yeah,
at the buildings that we have that
so-
used to employ hundreds of people right here in the county that now have skeleton crews of 40.
Yeah.
It's all you got to do is
That
from right
doesn't-
here, you can ride around the city.
That doesn't mean we throw in the towel. I
No,
mean, we
no.
And I know the commissioners are working to try to get industry to relocate and come here. But even with that, if they come here, they got to have a place to live that they can afford. And there's a lot of moving parts that are always in that. But Terry's absolutely right. We still have about the same piece of pie we've always had. We do have kids that left and come back for a variety of opportunities, more at high schools, it seems like, than anything. But with that said, I just applaud the teachers and the principals for, I mean, they sometimes are operating on a shoestring. I don't know how they do it, but I applaud them and I thank them for it. So, and I thank the directors, because I know y'all are doing it too.
But I do like to remind people, because I hear it a lot, I read articles about it a lot, and it's inaccurate when people say they're leaving our school system, our numbers are going down in our school systems because the public schools are not doing what they need to do, and they're just fleeing the public schools. No, they're not. The right answer is they're fleeing your county, and that is not entirely the Board of Education's fault. And I can name kid after kid that graduated this past year from Southside High School on my side of the river that left, well, not just graduated, but left, went on to college, and then those that are getting out of college that I've kept up with, are not coming back here.
No, they're not.
So once they leave, they're not coming back here, which means they're not having families here. You can't educate people that aren't in your county. If they're not here, you can't do anything about it. And that is a much broader issue than your Board of Education. And until people realize that and accept the fact that there's blame to go around a lot of places, you're not gonna get any better.
Beaufort County is still the jewel of eastern North Carolina. I wish more people knew what a great place it is to live.
Anybody
Anyway.
else got any questions on, yes, sir?
I got a question for Matthew. Last year, according to funding, how many positions did we lose?
Well, last year, if you look at your document, school year 23-24, you lost 3.63. And this is just state funded. This is not federal.
PRC 001 trends.
Nor local.
Yep, so in school year 20, you had 298.29. In the current year, you have 251.89. And that's just state funded. So what's happening is that your Title I funded schools, your committee who makes that Title I plan, including principals and parents and others, are having to use some of that federal funding to maintain teacher positions or instructional coach positions or whatever they believe is most prudent to their school site.
Okay. Part B of that is how many teachers' assistants did we lose?
Mark, can you help with that?
I believe if memory serves, last spring, the Board of Education eliminated 4 teacher assistant positions out of our overall total.
How many was that? I'm sorry.
4.
4?
Mhm.
I thought we eliminated like 11.
I think that we had asked you to. But in total, Mr. Carlton, we asked last year, I think initially it was over 40 positions. Most, maybe even 50, but throughout the year as things vacated, we collapsed them the best we could. Came back to the board with 36, and the board opted, or maybe 37, and the board opted to hold 11. So you're starting with needing to cut 11, and then based on these projections, I'm projecting that you're going to need a whole lot more.
Can I just summarize one thing, just to make sure? I think I know what you're saying, I'm pretty sure. But basically, what you're saying is, over the last several years, because I've been on the board those years, we have used our savings to save positions.
Yes.
Because we know that the more positions we can save, we keep class sizes in range, and we know that has a direct effect on learning. And, but there comes a day, and I think that day could be in a month or so, where you don't have the savings to keep saving positions.
No, you don't.
And
sir.
so that's where we're at now. We've done a job of trying to keep these positions, keep people employed, to some degree. We've lost some, but you know what I'm saying. But now it's getting critical where we don't have the funds to do that.
No, and I agree with you, and just to kind of paint the picture for those who haven't been on the board very long, 6 years ago, you had 8 or 9 people on a curriculum instruction team. Right now, you have 3. Most recently, we've moved maintenance teammates across the district. We've moved custodial teammates across the district. Mr. Doan has done an excellent job working with principals to try to collapse positions, and unfortunately, people are taking on more work. But the reality is, between now versus maybe 6, 8, 10 years ago, you're on a very skeletal support system, and inside your buildings, it's going to be even tougher, meaning the class sizes of 15, 17 fiscally cannot be supported that way anymore. So you are going to have lots of presentations in this budget preparation. You're going to have lots of pathways that you'll have to decide which way to go. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the money to support what you have, then you can't have what you have. And that's where we are.
And I know I'm taking up a lot of time, but this is very important
It
to
is.
me. It's important to all of you, I hope. But to build upon what you were just saying, I can remember the times when I would walk down the hall of our central offices, and the offices were full, or not full, but had people in them. And I hear from people within the public who does apparently, I'm not saying they completely don't understand our system, but I think there's some learning that could go on. Now, when you walk down the central office hall, you would think that we're on a holiday.
That's true.
And I want to add to that, I had this discussion with Dr. Cheeseman maybe before the holidays or over the holidays. This issue is not unique to Beaufort County or unique to North Carolina.
Nope.
There are, in fact, it's probably well over 75% of the counties in North Carolina are going to face this same issue in their budget. We always think of Wake County and Charlotte and Mecklenburg as very wealthy counties, but I know for a fact they are also taking one TA in a kindergarten setting and splitting them between 4 and 6 teachers. So you think just how much help can that one person provide for 4 to 6 teachers in a week? So they just have more students that they have to teach, but they are also looking at a cash crunch and a funding crunch. So it doesn't make me feel any better that misery loves company, but you know, what I do know is that our directors and our teachers and our principals and this school board is going to fine tune it to the best way we can. And we're going to do the best we can by our staffs all across the board. And some will be okay with it and some will not. But I think the best thing is instead of bad-mouthing what may or may not happen, you know, find out why it's going to happen and find out what you can do as a parent, as a community member to help. Because complaining doesn't solve a problem, never has, never will. It's what you do. You volunteer. You go in those elementary schools and those middle schools and those high schools, and you get cleared to volunteer, and you take some weight off of a teacher or off of a guidance office or something. You go in there. I'm old, but you know, back in the day when my children came through school, I volunteered 3 mornings a week at 2 different schools until my husband would be calling me, asking me when I was coming to work. But I did that because even back then I knew they needed that help. So we've got to encourage our communities. Don't just complain. Don't sit at the basketball game and complain. Get in there and volunteer. See what you can do to help. I know a lot of you already do that, but we need more of it, and we're going to need more of it. And that's my 2 cents.
Good, Don.
Dr. Cheeseman, with a new school in 2026, now that should affect staff and teachers, should it not, as far as, I mean, we're looking at closing 2 schools, which they will go, many will go to the new elementary, but
They
how
all
would
go.
that, since we're talking about this subject, how would that affect what we're talking about tonight?
Well, it's not going to impact the totality because, as described, the state of North Carolina determines total number of teachers based on total number of students in the district. So K-3 class size law also indicates what you can and cannot do.
That makes sense.
So you're essentially just taking them out of 2 really old buildings and putting them all into one. And so their ratios will have to remain the same based off of class size law. So things that might change could be custodial positions, school nutrition positions, but that's not going to be as much as a cost savings as you think it would be in the totality of it all.
Cost savings and not maintaining 2 old buildings, busing kids across county in 2 different shared buses instead of
Yeah.
to go into 1 school bus.
Yeah, you might see some energy changes or savings in that regard, but you're going to have to be increasingly thoughtful on a grander scheme in a more urgent manner.
And saving money on upkeep
That's
for
right.
the way old schools
2 of them.
that the 2 are.
That's right. Agreed. Well, 4.6, go ahead, Scary. Sorry, I didn't see you over there.
That's okay. As far as admin, as far as teachers, principals, our salaries that we're offering, and I'm wondering about if we're able to attract new teachers every year like we need to be attracting to keep the pool going, are we offering competitive salaries still that we can continue to do that?
So the state of North Carolina provides a salary schedule for administrators and professional educators. The differential to that would be your local supplement, and that would be something that this board would have to negotiate with your county commissioners in order to provide that local supplement increase to be more competitive with the likes of Pitt County.
So we're
We're not
not
up to Pitt County.
competitive, as competitive as we need to be.
Well, I'll just say it to you this way. If I have a candidate who's going to choose between us versus them, then our list is going to be slim,
Yeah.
because I can't compete with the salary supplement that others may be able to provide. Now, I'm also going to say that ours does compete against some of the smaller districts around us. You know, so sometimes the candidates choose us because other districts can't provide. But, you know, in that regard, the state provides the salary schedule. Your local funding source is your county commissioners, and you would need to negotiate with them around what the supplement is.
Do you need to add on the 4.6, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. 5.1, new school building design. You have an attachment. As many of you know, and I'll start off with this one, we had a meeting today at 10 a.m. with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, Chair, Vice Chair, Superintendent, City Manager, and City Attorney and School Board Attorney Sharon Lynn, at 10 a.m. To try to come to a resolution where we could go ahead and transfer the 4 acres to the school system. The attachment that you do have, prior board members would remember this attachment was a twist to Pennsylvania Avenue that squared it up, that we had to do some, and didn't need the 4 acres from the city. After today's meeting, it was, they were not agreeable to sell the parcel and/or the what now? So that is a good summary of the meeting, is that?
Sure, yeah, so, you know, we had a choice of.
Your mic's not on. Yep, we had a choice in August of A or B.
Right.
If everybody remember that one, was we encroached on the city, 4 acres over there by that parcel, or B being this one, where we squared it up, and we moved maintenance, technology, and nutrition. And after today's meeting, it is my professional opinion, and Mr. Williams or Dr. Cheeseman, correct me if I'm wrong, we are going to need to now move forward with option B of twisting the school, squaring it up with Pennsylvania Avenue, and putting the retainment pond in that front left corner where it's the lowest on the property and make the property drain. And I'll stop there. If y'all got any questions, Don?
So you're saying that the Kugler field, that's out of the question now?
So the Kugler option is, we have to have 100% of the city wants the wording public use. Is that correct?
General public.
General public
General
use.
public use.
That's we gotta have all 23 and growing. And that's
Identified errors.
identified, sign off that they need to do that.
That's not,
There you go.
It
You answered
didn't
that.
happen.
yeah.
It-
You're
So,
right, it happened.
and the other option was petition in a court to throw out the 100 years covenants, and then city. But we need a direction. We need to start moving in a direction. I did ask today, would you sell us the land to to do what we needed to do. It's actually we're just gonna round it up to 4 acres, so it's like 3.1 acres is what we really need, but 4 acres is, what the square off was to come back to get Kugler. You know, it was 4 acres for 4 acres. But, that was, not received, so
So they didn't want to sell.
that was not received. Now, and it was not, no, they didn't want to sell.
So did they say why?
No.
They didn't say why.
Mr. Chair.
They
It
said
was
it was not,
asked.
he said it was not for sale.
It was asked twice, and I got a no twice.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
the presentation that you received today from the city, can I ask you who did the presentation?
There was,
Wasn't really a
there
presentation.
wasn't a presentation. It was a go.
A mouth?
It
Just
was-
a mouth?
It was the mayor pro tem, city manager,
Their attorney.
their attorney, your chair, vice chair, superintendent, and our attorney.
So,
If you remember, I asked for the joint meeting,
yes, that's what I was.
the whole joint meeting, and that was their response, that they would agree to that one as a face-to-face.
Did they tell you why they didn't want to meet with the whole committee, the whole board?
I can answer that. Their answer was their choice.
They said that was their choice?
Their choice. Now, read into that what you want. I mean, I'm not going to read anything into it. It's just they didn't want to. It said their choice, and that they have that right, I guess. I mean,
Good, all
I don't know
right,
what
Dan?
to
Now,
say.
just so I have my facts straight, did we or did we not have some representatives from the city in this very boardroom back in July that agreed to some sort of sale or an agreement?
So on July 10th, Wednesday, July 10th at 12 o'clock, we held a progress monitoring meeting here. During that meeting, Jimmy Height, architect, explained to all who were here that we would need 4 acres of land to maintain where we were. The original GIS, when we first looked at this property, cited that it was ours. After having that property surveyed is when we realized that the city of Washington owned the land, who at the time did not know they owned the land, as we've been upkeeping it for the last 40 years. So
Yeah.
to that, in this meeting on July 10th, Mayor Sadler, Pro Tem Tyree, and City Manager Russell were present. As the meeting concluded, they met with us in the center where the audience is now and made a commitment to ensuring that we would get this land and working together in that regard. So at the time, it was donation or land swap or potential sale.
And it sounds like we've exhausted every option. I mean,
It
they've
was
taken the
abundantly
option to
clear
purchase.
today that it was cited that the land was not for sale.
That's interesting, to say the least.
Agree.
But that still wasn't the whole committee. That wasn't the whole board. That was just the mayor and the.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
That was the one.
city manager.
Okay, city manager. Okay.
So none of the other council members were present. But that was their choice. They weren't having that meeting if everyone was going to be present.
Y'all saw the email that I sent to try to get, you know, old school or what, let's get in the room, let's talk about it, we can work it out.
Yeah.
There's not many things we can't work out.
You would think.
Well,
Have they offered any option at all?
yes. Option 2 was this park, and as discussed, prior to Christmas, was, every surplus property that we have, even Kugler, even though Kugler is indeeded into the Board of Education's name, has got to go to be surplus and go before the county commission.
They have first right of refusal.
They have
right
first
of
right of
refusal.
purchase. So, they want option 2 to be that if Kugler falls through, which, as I said today during the meeting, we got a better chance of winning the lottery to get 23 names and 23 people. So that's, the second design is back on your board docs, with the twist. Jimmy Height has been keyed up, to work with, Wimco, on the twist, and the design. And, to start moving forward with this since July, that we had promise after promise and emails, not just phone conversations. There was, as been told to, in many board meetings prior to, of emails and votes, that the city had to do such things. So, we're gonna need to twist the school. If you can see it, Pennsylvania Avenue is on your left. Have you got, Pennsylvania Avenue is on your left. If you look really good in that bottom corner, you can see the grayed out, areas of the buildings, that would have to be relocated, and moved. And, Dr. Cheeseman can elaborate on, where his staff would move in the interim or permanently as it gets moved.
Sure. So unfortunately, we would have to move the operations team. And so in short, we're looking at Building 10 of Eastern Elementary School, which is near 264, where Amber's team, technology, would shift to that building. Lisa Taylor, principal of Eastern, would collapse those classrooms into the building for next school year. It doesn't have to be done this school year, but in the summertime, we would make that move. Part of that is having the fiber moved, which is about a 90-day, up to 90-day order and placement, possibly a $40,000 charge in that regard. And so we're looking at how do we actually take the entire district offline and not impact students. So that looks like a summertime change. In terms of school nutrition, not a bad movement, possibly into Building 4 at the district office area, possibly in the JCT, 4 employees there who need to shift into offices. The biggest thing there is the district freezer. So we're looking at temporary tractor trailer for, freezer before we actually purchase a brand new freezer and put it in its final location, but potentially JCT, as in the long run, JCT, instead of donating that building back anywhere, you could actually use it as a district support center, meaning all of your operations could go back into it, your district personnel could go back into it. And then maintenance right now, we're looking at coming up into Building 4, back into the transportation area. Instead of going into the gate to the left where transportation would be, you would go into the gate and move right. Looking at temporary buildings there, or maybe permanent fixtures since our fuel depot is there, storage areas are there. So we have some things in place. Our operations team is currently working on some things. I've given them some tasks to complete in order to bring some data back to the table. But over the next month, we'll have an actionable plan in place for your review.
My understanding and the way I look at this, the actual design and layout of the school is not changing. It's just the
Take it
position
here,
on the property.
turn it there.
Right, the position of the school. And Mr. Rawls has walked in. I still have full confidence that WIMCO's gonna knock it out of the park and gonna do a great job of building this beautiful new school. It's just gonna be in a different position. Take a little longer and there'll be a delay, and some other things that I'm not gonna get into, but anyway, is what it is.
Anybody else got any questions? I gotta make a motion.
Any estimates or any figures in mind as far as how long it's gonna add to the process, or
So the
how much it's gonna cost in addition?
So the cost, I know that's so general to say back, but we don't know right now, and we have a slated meeting with Height Associates and WIMCO on Thursday at 1 o'clock to start putting timelines back together and have some general data collection around what cost may look like. In terms of timeline, Mr. Height projected 8 to 9 months for a redesign. in terms of a site design that would then have to be approved again by the state of North Carolina. And then also just be mindful, the children have to come out of Eastern before you can knock it down, and there are no other places in this district to put all of those students throughout the year to knock it down any sooner. So your timeline has to brush up against the beginning of summer to take them out of the school to knock it down. So that's part of where our timeline was sitting and why we came to this moment in January when we wished we would have had that knowledge in July.
Can I
Go
say-
ahead, Ms. Booth.
Mr. Chairman or Dr. Cheeseman,
Sure.
could you explain to us the amount of property?
Or less.
Or less.
Can you explain to us what's on that property?
Grass.
A ditch.
The same thing that's been on the property for decades, nothing.
Well, you've maintained that property for over 40 years.
Can I just say
Okay.
one thing to,
Go
when
ahead.
everybody else gets through? Like a lot coming at you, but remember, this design of the school we're talking about is a design we've had all along. I mean, this isn't like we're coming in here tonight saying we're gonna have a new design of a school. This is the design we've always
Right,
had.
it's the very same
It's-
one.
As Carolyn said, it's not going, the school is still gonna be the school. It's just gonna turn. And as I told someone today, the school's, when it's built, the school is gonna be here for 50, 75 years or ever how many. So I think it's very important that we do exactly what we're doing. If the city does not, if we cannot partner with the city, then it's very important that you take your time, get it right the first time. It is my understanding from what I learned today in talking to the various parties, the school hasn't even been fully permitted yet. So if you're gonna do anything to make it switch a little bit of a different way, now's your time. Go ahead and do it. Let's get it right the first time. You know, I've even heard people out in the different commissions say, you know, don't rush, take your time. That is exactly what this is about. Let's get it right the first time and go from there. And when the school is built, the school will be here for decades and decades and decades. And 50 years from now, nobody will ever know if the school was facing this way or that way.
Do we have to respond in some way to DPI about the delay?
Nope.
I know there's a timeline in which you must
2 years
use
from
those
February
funds.
7th.
Nope.
Pardon
February 7th.
We're still good. We're
Yep.
still good
me, from this
completed.
February?
from receiving the
No,
grant.
from last February.
From receiving the grant.
So we're 1 year in, February 7th, so we got
You're fine.
another year to start construction.
You're fine.
To start construction,
not
not to
complete.
finish.
They don't care how
Or
long
we
it takes
might-
you to build.
We
They just
might
want-
run up against that.
No, we're good.
No, we're good. We're gonna be way ahead of that.
I don't understand anything anymore.
I do now. Because we're
Well,
working with some
no,
people in this room that
this-
we control.
No, the reason that I'm confident in this is because once it's finally been decided that we're not gonna have a partnership within the city, we are now controlling this building on everything that only you have to decide.
Yep.
So,
This board
we're
decides.
good unless we come across something that the nine of
Go ahead,
us
Ms.
can't agree with each other on, and I don't even worry about that.
Yep, go ahead, Ms. Booth.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I can't believe, I'm one person, but I think I'm probably thinking like a whole lot of people are thinking, but if not, it's still me, okay? I can't believe for the life of me that we've gone through this since July, and the city have known this since July, and we're talking about bringing a $50 million school into the city of Washington, North Carolina. Not about us, it's about the children, the students. And I just can't believe that they're not willing to give us a piece of land that they can't even use anymore. There's nothing can go on it. I'm glad, Mr. Leary, I'm so glad you're here, because I want you to hear this. It just doesn't matter that we are sitting here fussing over 3.5, acres of land that nobody can use. We only want a retention pond, is that right?
And a little bit of this.
Yeah, a little bit. And they are sitting there holding this property, has never done anything with it, and still not doing anything with it, and still can't do anything with it. We're gonna stop a $50 million school coming into their city.
No, they're not.
No, they're gonna stop it.
No, they're not stopping this school. We're gonna build a
I'm
school.
talking about now.
I know
I'm
exactly
talking
what
about
you're
now.
saying.
That's
I
what
know.
I'm
I know what you're saying, but I don't want everybody to get the wrong idea. The school's gonna be built. It's gonna be built the correct way, and that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I
we
do,
said that.
I
I
do
think they
echo your
understand that.
sentiments.
I think they understand that, but I wanted also them to understand how I feel.
I echo your
agree.
sentiments. It is concerning to me of the partnership, but I can, as your vice chair, I want to make sure you clearly understand. I laid it out very clear that this was can I say that?
Yes.
That I laid it out very clear to that meeting today, and these two heard my little speech. I know I'm pretty famous for giving them around here, that this is a $50+ million project being built in the city of Washington by a reputable, #1 rated city contractor, WIMCO, using dozens of city residents, citizens, employees, of subcontractors within the city during the 18-month build period, because that's what we anticipate, an 18-month build period. The side economic benefits to the city will be tremendous, but most importantly than all those facts would be what you were touching on, Ms. Booth. 800 students will be 800 students, kindergarten, pre-K, and first graders, and second graders, and third graders that live in the city of Washington will be provided with a more secure and safe school. And is that not what I explained today
Exact
to
word for
them?
word.
That is almost word for, matter of fact, I know it's word for word because I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure they heard it. And I can just assure you, you say you can't believe it. All I can say, Ms. Booth, is believe it.
Let me ask you, as far as the bids we've received so far, I know this is just pull a figure from the sky. Some of you are more familiar with this than I am. The cost of materials,
We don't know at this moment, and I know where you're going, and we're.
but how much could it be?
Can I
mean,
address that a
I'm not
little bit?
looking for anything exact.
I don't, there's no number to put there, but the actual good news of that is, over the last 24 months, the cost of materials are going down, not up.
So I don't know how to say that until we get in there Thursday, and then we'll update the board from there.
So there will not be a noon meeting as we had previously scheduled for Thursday?
No. I do need to make a motion, though. I move that we proceed with reorientating and redesigning the new K-3 school to align with Pennsylvania Avenue.
Second.
We don't have much choice.
Why do we need to do that now? I'm sorry.
Because I gotta have a motion to give Jimmy the direction to let's go ahead and do it and orient it, and our attorney said that we had to do it.
Okay.
I got a motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Go build our school.
Moving to 5.2, field trip approval, Dr. Cheeseman.
Northside High School FBLA State Conference and Competition, March 19th through the 22nd, 30 male students, 2 male adults, 30 female students, 2 female adults. Activity bus is their form of transportation. With Southside High School Marching Band Spring Performance Tour in Charleston, South Carolina, May 8th through May 11th. 12 male students, 1 male adult, 12 female students, 3 female adults. Charter bus, band boosters will fund the trip. Northside High School State Track Meet, boys and girls in Greensboro, 20 male students, 1 male adult, 20 female students, 2 female adults. Activity bus.
So moved.
All right, got a motion and a second over there. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. 5.3, Ms. Potts, you're up for an audit presentation board. You got a bunch of attachments. And then we got a PowerPoint And you got another one.
Yeah, kind of tell us where you want us to go first.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm gonna spare you my presentation. I'm gonna let Mr. Daniel Fox here do the presentation. And he's given everybody, a packet with the audit. And I'm gonna let him take over. If you have any questions, just write it to us and we'll help you the best we can.
Thank you, Christie, I appreciate it. Like Christie said, my name's Daniel Fox, and I'm a assurance manager at Forvis Mazars. I'll be presenting the financial statement and compliance audit for Beaufort County Schools for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. I did want to pause for a minute and say thank you to Christie and the finance team for all their hard work this year. They were able to get us all the information we needed to be able to submit the financial statements to the state on time, which is absolutely wonderful. We'll move on to the next slide. So this is an agenda of what we'll go through for the presentation. First, we'll discuss the audit results. Then we'll review the required communications to the board. We'll quickly go over some financial highlights, and then we'll review the results of the compliance audit. You can go to the next slide. So next section we're doing is the discussion of the audit results. If you go to the next slide. The purpose of an audit is to, the purpose of audit and all the work that contributes it is to enable us to express an opinion on the financial statements. Included here on the slide is an excerpt from the financial statement audit opinion, which is an unmodified or clean audit opinion. This is the type of opinion that the users of the financial statements would like to see, and it gives them reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially accurate. If you could go to the next slide. Next, we'll move to the required communications to the board. Next slide. There are various aspects of the audit process that we're required to communicate to the board. They're listed here on the slide for you. Significant estimates and sensitive disclosures, difficulties or disagreements encountered during the audit, uncorrected misstatements encountered during the audit, and then management representations, which are included in the back of the required communications, the stapled packet provided to all of you. First thing first, if you could go back to the other slide. For significant estimates and sensitive disclosures, we identified as during the audit the useful lives of depreciable assets and the proportionate share of the net pension and OPEB liabilities as items that are significant estimates. Regarding the pension and OPEB liabilities, this is the board share of long-term liabilities for the teachers and state employee retirement plan and the retiree health benefit fund plan, which are calculated at the state level and by evaluation specialists. These do not represent current outflow of cash from the board and are funded by contributions from the employees. Each district has their own proportionate share that they present on their own financial statements as well. Regarding difficulties and disagreements, we noted none during the audit, which is wonderful. Uncorrected misstatements, those would be entries identified during the audit that management did not want to record. We noted none, which is wonderful. And then you can look at the management representations that have been provided to us at your leisure at the back of this packet. We can move on to the next slide. Financial highlights. Go to the next slide. The first one here is revenues. It shows governmental funding sources for the prior 3 years as a comparison. As seen by the green bar there, that is the state funding, and it's easily the largest funding source for the board. It increased approximately $1 million from prior year. This is related to, or primarily attributable to, system-wide support services and instructional services. In the gray bar there, that's county and other local funding. That decreased by approximately $567,000. And this was a combination of a increase of $991,000
in general appropriations and a decrease of about 1.5 million in other revenues in Fund 8. As noted by the blue bar there, that is the federal revenues or federal funding. This decreased by approximately 3.6 million, and this was primarily attributable to less COVID-19 Education Stabilization Fund grant revenues. And this is consistent across all the districts that we audit as those monies are being spent. If you could go to the next slide. This gives a visual representation of where the monies are being spent each year. As you can tell by the green bar there, a majority of the money is being spent on instructional services, and so that's about 70%, and about 30% is on operational services. And this breakdown between instructional services being more than the other operational services is also consistent what we see in other districts as well. If you could go to the next slide. This slide is the fund balance for general and other special revenues fund. This compares the prior 3 years to the current year. The total fund balance is represented by the green bar. That decreased by approximately $279,000 when compared to the prior year. And this was a combination of the general fund decrease of about $150,000 and special revenue fund decrease of about $129,000. So overall, it's fairly consistent with the prior year. The available for appropriation gray bar there increased by about $125,000, which is consistent with the decrease that you see in the unassigned fund balance by the blue bar. If you could go to the next slide. This is just another representation of the fund balance. It's showing the fund balance as a percent of total governmental expenditures. More or less, this is consistent with everything that we previously discussed on the prior slide. I would like to note that it's our general recommendation that as the fund balance, the fund balance should not be used to pay for reoccurring expenditures, and a plan should be put in place to build it back up when it is spent. Otherwise, we don't make general comments on the health or otherwise of the fund balance. If you could move to the next slide. This last two sections here are related to the compliance part of the financial statement audit. And this is related to federal and state programs, which we deem to be major testing for the year. If you could go to the next slide. In connection with our compliance audit, we're required to assess internal controls and compliance in accordance with governmental auditing standards. During our testing, we noted no internal control findings, which is wonderful. And we also noted no significant or pervasive issues related to the lack of purchase orders being used in our detailed testing of the budgetary process, which is also wonderful. If you go to the next slide. This slide details the federal major programs that we identified for testing this year. These were the Title I program and COVID-19 Education Stabilization Fund. We noted no findings or internal control issues during our test of these federal programs. And if you go to the next slide, similarly for the major state programs that identified, State Public School Fund and the Career Technical Education State Months of Employment, we also did not find any internal controls or other issues. So overall, very smooth, clean audit, which is wonderful. Big kudos to Dr. Cheeseman and Christy and the finance team. So it makes my life a lot easier and makes the audit process move a lot smoother. So we really appreciate it. And that more or less concludes the presentation from me. And I'd like to open up the floor if there are any questions.
The only issue I have is, which I expressed last year, getting a 71-page report to review. And I may be the only accountant on the board, I'm not sure. Everybody's got a lot of different experience, but having 3 days to look at it. I didn't even attempt to. I realize that there are no findings, nothing significant to report, but I feel the need to go through it and take more time with it. And so I don't know where this goes or what is required now. Is there a statutory requirement for us to provide this to the state, DPI or anything like that?
The LGC has already approved of the audit report, and it's to y'all. to
It's already
also
been
approve.
submitted.
Yep.
Okay. I feel like we need more time.
I agree. I'm an avid reader, but I'm not a speed reader.
It's
Well,
quite a bit to take in, for sure.
I agree with that as well. We need more than 2 days or 3 days.
We
to
can,
look at this.
there's no reason why you can't table it and take it up the next meeting. Yeah.
Is 2 weeks long enough for you? Or should you go to
Yes,
February?
2 weeks would be fine for
Yep.
me.
So the
That's
next,
fine.
the
So
next
if-
meeting is
Yes.
okay?
You want to
Gonna
make
make a motion, we table this action
Okay.
till the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Williams?
I move that we go into closed session.